getting back to the show, what do you guys think of the choice of Mysterio as the main bad bad? Because the way the commercials have been showing us, we had the impression there may be something else, but Mysterio seems to have was the big bad overall, and that he was developed by. I mean, the cause of Mysterio was basically
there was a ton of speculation as to the villains.
Right.
One of the there was a speculation these characters called the Elementals, which first appeared in Supernatural Thriller 6, that they were going to be in there. So if you bought that book, sorry. If you also thought,
well, they used them, but
there was also speculation that Hydro Man was going to make his first appearance in here as well, because everybody saw that big, that big water creature. Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, Hydro Man was selling for as much as $75 an issue.
Wow.
Oops.
What do you mean, like Spider-Man?
First appearance of Spider-Man.
200 and something?
Yep.
210 or something like that? That's crazy.
Yeah, 200. Was it 200? Yeah, about that. So that went. Some of us made some money, and others of us did not.
You mean you got in, you got out?
I'm not necessarily talking about myself. Then there was another spec where they thought there was going to be some mud creature, and that was in Spider-Man 217.
Oh, yeah.
Oh well, didn't spend that much on it. So there was a ton of speculation as to who the villains were going to be, but it was, and I was sitting there cracking up because this is, as a comic collector and somebody who does spec from time to time, this is one of the things you look at and you're just dying laughing because you're like, oh man, anybody who ponied up all the cash for this, it was such a draw. But I did like. Mysterio's whole thing, even up to the point where he pulled the plug on it, and these guys are just sitting back there laughing like, we got it, we got it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, they played the whole thing correctly. And I also, one of the reasons I like Tom Holland's performance is that, again, when I came into Spider-Man, he's still a kid, he's still a teenager, different, as the stuff that they did with Ditko, because Peter Parker there was really a different sort of character than what Tom Holland is portraying. But with the, I think with the exuberance that a lot of teenagers still have for life, even if they are not necessarily very successful of it. So I went over, and then it's the same thing that a lot of teenagers would do. Like, you know what? I got all this power and responsibility. You're older. You seem like a good guy. You might know what to do with it better. Here, you go take this, and then I can just go over here and focus on getting the girl, hanging out with my friends, do that other type of stuff, and, the Spider-Man stuff. So that for me was very believable, him just giving this whole thing away. And then later on finding out, oh man, I screwed up. I can't believe it. I did all of this. So Mysterio, I thought from start to finish, love Mysterio. And I can't remember what the issue is. It might be his second appearance of Mysterio, but that whole sequence where he's just buffeting him around through all of those illusions.
Yeah.
Because in the comic, I think it was very hard for people to understand what Mysterio was doing, that Spider-Man was like, why can't you just, sort the whole thing out? He's like, no, these are very believable things that can be changed on a whim. And as long as you're within that perimeter, you're within that zone of effect, you're pretty much, you're pretty much subject, rather, to everything that's going on in that zone of effect. So we got to see the Spider-Sense, come back somewhat. I don't really necessarily agree with how they use it towards the whole thing, but we got to see him use that towards getting out of it. But Mysterio from start to finish was just a really good villain. Really good villain. A shame that he went the way of all villains in the Marvel Universe who are good villains.
Well, I would just add to that point is if they're going into the next movie, and I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal is very strong in this movie, and Mysterio is the master of mystery, there's no, and he's tied into the next story. Should they have taken him out? Should he be gone, or could that have been part of the mystery? Because
that's part of the mystery. I mean, that's really
hopefully
the
they don't. They
no, he's dead.
Posada and say no, he has to be dead.
I don't know. There's a lot of people are saying that he.
I don't think he should be. Okay, but then when you have the reveal at the end, okay, for me the reveal at the end is kind of like, okay, this was my last salvo because you got me, but I'm going to get you because I'm not in the case of my demise. Because usually villains like Mysterio usually want to hang that over the guy's head, and I'm going to manipulate you into doing what I want to do, or everybody's going to know who you are. So it goes, it goes along that he would be dead. But Marvel just has, with the exception of Loki, you're a good villain, great. By the end of this film, you will have had been a great villain at the end of the day. It was, Killmonger gone, okay. Mysterio
we don't
gone.
know yet.
Killmonger.
In a flashback scene.
But I'm saying one of the things
that
they're talking about is that they want to bring back Mysterio because they want to still do a Sinister Six movie, and they're saying that Mysterio, that although we saw him get killed, he is the master of illusion. I mean, And
They
so
hinted.
You can
either
only go
way.
so far with that.
They hinted either way, where it could be, Jake Gyllenhaal could still be alive, Quentin Beck could still be alive, or his team just runs the
Yeah,
same.
you could have
way.
you could have a new Mysterio. They've done that before in
Yeah.
comics as well, but they had that.
Well,
That would be.
So the question though about Mysterio though is that did you like the fact the PD? Did you like the fact that most of these guys were disgruntled former Iron Man employees?
The Iron Man thing was a little too. I mean, Iron Man is now sort of the Uncle Ben, and they're making it's almost like the Phoenix effect, where it's like in the comics, Phoenix was talked about all the time. Having two movies which are so connected to Iron Man, they're really selling us on Spider-Man being the next Iron Man or taking his place. It's just like, no, it was funny though. The way they did it, showing that they were a part of the.
Yeah, you remember that scene? Well, he was there.
He was there, and then they actually had the person who was in the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
As part of the villains and that sort of thing. So that was cool. I just think it was a little too much Iron Man. He was so much in the movie, he's almost not actually deceased because he was every other second. It starts with Iron Man. There's so many connections to it. The Iron Spidey suit, like this sort of thing, and then next they go to Paris. There's Iron Man pictures. So it's like, is Tony Stark actually gone? Like that sort of thing. So I had that. I get what it played well. It was fun, but I think it was almost a little too much Iron Man.
All right, so wait, Cal, what do you think about that madness? Do you think there's just too much Iron Man? I mean, we gotta get this subject out because some people are saying no. You're saying, I mean, a lot of people look at Iron Man as the Atlas of the MCU.
Are you putting
right?
me on the island here?
I'm
that
putting
I'll
you on
be
an
all
island,
alone?
a little island.
Okay.
Right? What do you think about that, Cal?
That he's the Atlas of the.
I'm just saying that a lot of people consider him the Atlas, and the very fact that he's saying that he shouldn't be everywhere in the movie, I don't think that took away from the movie.
I don't know if you can get away from Iron Man this quickly because it's only been one film. Endgame was only one film, one film ago. And this is the film, this was the character that jump-started everything that we've got to this point. So I don't think you can get away from him that quickly within the film. Now, I don't disagree with it's a lot, and if you continue to do it, then it does become a problem, especially for me on the one part I did agree with. Spider-Man as the next Iron Man does not work for me. That's not the character. He's not supposed to be leading the Avengers or any of that stuff. It's a totally different thing.
Look, I don't know. I think you guys are totally misunderstanding what you guys are
I mean,
saying.
Spider-Man on the Avengers for me is a big. That had to be a big leap, a big leap of faith for me at the end of the day. Iron Man was crucial and pivotal to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both outside in story, and out of story. So we just had Endgame, and it made more sense for these people to have all these homages to Iron Man than it did for that whole Blip nonsense, which made no sense whatsoever. They could have just kept the story rolling, and I would have been fine. That was like a nice little gag. So I thought what they did was, I mean, it's a tough balance. I think you have to do it. I think they did enough of it, but at the same point, if it's like going to be 5, 6 films in, and it's still going to be like, Iron Man's like, oh man, like like almost like the Godfather, and we're going to see him or this, or what would Tony do? Like, no. If you can't do that because you didn't have to kill the character off for all of that if that was the case. So you have to see how the films unfold.
Well,
I thought this was okay.
I got to kind of disagree with you because we're talking about 4 films now. We're talking about Civil War, where Iron Man has a connection with him. We're talking about Homecoming.
I'm not talking about his connection with Peter Parker. I'm talking about they're going to be holding him up. It can't be, look, we're going to have Iron Man Street, and Tony, Tony Stark place.
Yeah, Anthony Stark way.
I can see what you're saying. So here's another question.
Superheroes die all the time, and it just doesn't unfold that way.
You went paid in full. Superheroes die all the time, B.
Listen, Petey, so what do you think about this whole stuff about the blip and the blip? To me, that was one thing that I think they went overboard a little bit.
It was stupid.
But it had to explain the timeline, though. What do you think about that?
You can't explain that.
Yeah,
Petey,
you can't explain it.
I agree. I can't. There's no way. And the way they explained it, that Brad got older or something like that.
Yeah.
That really threw me for a loop. So
The idea is that these guys were in high school. We're saying that time still passed normally for everybody, which means nobody would be in high school anymore, except for the people who just came back. Okay? And then these guys would be, they're like, well, we got to take our exams again. So most of the people who you guys are interacting with would have already graduated, been on. It's not like, okay, they started off as a freshman. Now it makes no sense.
No, but they're saying all that cohort of group, they all got wiped out doing Thanos, okay, with the snap.
And they
so
all
they
grew
came
up,
back.
but they
so
had
like,
to go
so
back
then you
and-
had someone like Brad, who was younger than them, and then is now the same age as them, and they're all in the same grade.
Are they saying he grew up during the snap?
Yes,
no,
that's
the
what
5
they-
years. That's why.
So he was already in
He was in with them, but he was so much smaller. He was one of the other guys.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Was
It
he?
means-
If he was on Earth, that means he graduated and he's done. There's no
Yes.
reason for him to be in
he
school.
wasn't the same age as them. He was younger than them.
Right.
He was like in 8th grade or whatever, or
But he-
7th grade. And
he
so
was
when,
with them. You're saying that he was
said
in-
he
It was
wasn't with
5
them.
years though. Everybody would have graduated.
No, but I'm
unless
saying-
you're stupid, there's no reason for you to be
Well,
there in
I
high
mean,
school
no,
They,
anymore.
exactly.
they said it wasn't. They said he was such and such's younger brother, and so now he's our same age. That's what they're saying.
What is this, a K to 12 school? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, we knew your younger brother, and we knew you know.
One
people-
year, he didn't.
Okay,
The point
if the
is,
snap
it
happened
makes-
5 years later, anybody, unless we were all taken out, that means anybody who was still around would have dealt with their pain and had to have graduated school or dropped out.
I agree,
They would
but
not
what
be
they're
there.
saying is that he wasn't in school with them.
Mm-hmm.
He was younger than all of them. He was the younger brother of one of the other characters, and that he grew up. You know, it's like
And so
It
now-
doesn't- you
and so
can't.
now
There's no
you
way
have
you've
the kids who-
explained it 3 times. There's no way to explain it.
Why would they care about his younger brother?
Because now you have regular school. What they're trying to show is that there's regular school going on. Just like right now, you have kids who are into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So let's say they were in the 12th grade, the kid was in 7th grade, and now he is in
Okay,
high
this,
school.
this is too much explaining. This is like you got caught with. This is like your wife comes home and she catches you with